I want to jump over here to Seth Rogen's actual tweet, or rather the photo that he tweeted. There's a lot to break down here, and I've got a whole separate thing where we're going to go by line by line and kind of break everything down. So in case you haven't seen it already, here is the photo that Seth Rogen tweeted. You know, on its surface, it looks like a very generic kind of, oh, this is a teenager in high school. It looks like he's in science class and he's taking notes, and these are, he's kind of half paying attention to what the teacher's saying, and, kind of doing some doodles, and all right, the teacher's talking about whatever, so let's, right? But I think Seth Rogen is giving a lot away. I think Seth Rogen is giving a lot away as to what this movie is going to be, as to what the story is, as to some of the villains, certain things that we can expect. So let's jump in here real quick. I want to break this down for you. All right, so here we are. We're going to break down Leo's notes. So what's the first thing that pops out to us about this? Well, we have a release date. First and foremost, probably the biggest piece of news here from Seth Rogen's tweet is that we have a release date, August 11th, 2023. It's a little over 2 years away, which makes sense. If they're still writing the story, they don't know what to animate yet, and animation takes a long time. They still have to get their vocal cast together, they have to record and all that. So it's still a little over 2 years away, which is fine. But first and foremost, we have a release date. And in case you didn't see that before, let me just jump in real quick. You can see in the top right-hand corner of the screen, it says Leonardo, August 11th, 2023, Science 1. And then again, right above the top of the page on the left side, August 11th, 2023. So it's all pretty evident right there. All right. So the next thing that jumps out to me here is that obviously this is heavy on the science references. So I think there's a lot about this movie that is going to be science, maybe not heavy, but science, rooted in science. A lot of the story and the mutations, I think we're going to get a lot, because again, it begs the question, why is Leonardo taking science notes? Because Donatello has always been, I think there's something going on with Donatello, but more about that later. Donatello's always been the science guy. He's always been the genius. He's always been the tech nerd. So I think Leonardo's journey into science, first and foremost, I think this is a Leo movie. I don't think this is going to be yes, it's an ensemble movie, because it is. It just has to be. But I think this is more so going to be about Leonardo's journey than anyone else. I think it's heavily going to be about Leonardo as the leader of the team, right? So I think I think there's something going on with Donatello, and like I said, more about that later, that is forcing Leonardo to go more into the science of what is mutagen, how does this work, who are these scientists, how do I do blah, blah, blah with this science stuff, right? Okay. I think there's going to be some evil science experiments. Now, breaking news. What, Mike? Evil science experiments in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie? What? I know. I'm a massive TMNT fan. It's every single episode, there's some evil science experiment. I know. I get it. But let's jump in here to the notes really quick. Just kind of looking at this, when you look at it on the surface, you're like, oh, okay, he's taking notes. And some of this is hard to read just because of Seth Rogen's, I assume Seth Rogen wrote all of this out himself. But, he talks about Swedish chemists, per Theodore Clave, who's an actual real scientist. Under the nitrogen thing, he's actually calling out Antoine Lavoisier, who discovered nitrogen. He was a scientist in France who discovered oxygen. He also discovered nitrogen. You might be asking yourself, Mike, are you reciting all of this from memory? No. I had to look all of this up. I looked all of this up before this video because I was like, who are these people? So, yeah, so there's that. Okay. But down under the last elemental kind of category, it says it's a technology, critical element, semiconductor, other machines, solar panels, semi-toxic, fungi can use it instead of sulfur in amino acids, will be on test. Will be on test. So I think that, why would he put will be? Also, look, there's like a little. It looks more of like a star under the will be on test. And if you can't find will be on test, it's right above the sword that says honor and loyalty will be on test. It's possible that is also connecting to the asterisk in the top right hand corner of the page. Like I said, you guys, I might be looking too much into this, but I think there are so many clues. I think there are so many clues that Seth Rogen has laid out here. Because, like, why else would he do this? Look at the asterisk. Not quite in the top right-hand corner here. Let me recenter it for you. Colas Shredder. I know, Shredder. But this is an actual scientist who's living today, I believe in, is it Norway? Norway or Sweden, somewhere in Scandinavia. Colas Shredder is, and again, like let's look at what this is all connecting to. It's a radiation source and portable X-ray devices, and in something lasers. I can't quite make out what it is that solid state lasers. I don't know. Non-toxic. Colas Shredder signal processing challenges for digital holographic video display systems. So again, I think there are, yes, this is heavy on the science, but I like with holographic projections, and there was another thing in here about something about the nitrogen, the caffeine and morphine come from it. It blocks the receptors of animal neurotransmitters. So again, like, why even mention that kind of stuff if you weren't going to like perform evil experiments, right? So coming out of some of these evil experiments, let's go back into the chalkboard real quick. Next, Leo needs to learn discipline. Leo needs to learn discipline. And like, again, why would he put it in the top right-hand corner, top left-hand corner of the page, where he has a little illustration of himself with discipline, and it's kind of a big highlight. So again, that says to me a lot about this movie, that Leonardo is going on his own journey. I think something's happened to Donnie. We'll get to it. He has to go through the scientific journey himself, of self-discovery. Let's pull up the next one. Leo is on a quest to discover himself. Now, again, where am I getting this from? Let's jump back into the illustration, shall we? We'll scroll down a little bit. See the little canister of mutagen on the left-hand side? It says, "Who am I?" Who am I? This is Leonardo taking notes in the middle of science class, and of course, like, they're talking about all these elements. Supposedly, like if the narrative of this illustration is to be derived, Leonardo is learning all about these elements and the mutagen and what does this do and what does that do, and he comes to this moment of realization that he decides to scribble in his notebook that says, "Who am I?" Who am I? Right next to a canister of mutagen. He knows where, I mean, like, I'm sure Splinter has explained to him where he came from. But who is he? What is it that makes him tick? What is his purpose? Why is he here? I think these are all questions that are going to be central to the character of Leonardo. And again, like, all of this stuff that I'm saying is probably like, well, yeah, Mike, water is wet. What other news do you have? That's just the character of Leonardo. But being that Seth Rogen took the time to write this out, I think we're going to have like a very clear narrative like, I'm not going to say an origin story, but like, we're going to probably walk away from this with a very clear understanding of what makes Leonardo tick. Next, on breaking down Leo's notes, I think April's upset with the turtles. I think something went down. And I'm probably going to reference the disappearance of Donatello, and again that will come in later. I probably should have put that much higher on the list, but I think something possibly went down with Donatello. Where's the here we go. Yeah, let's scroll back up right under Leonardo's illustration of himself saying discipline. Right below it, apologize to April. Why? Like, it sounds like he directly is responsible for something going on with April. Maybe he's directly responsible for the disappearance of Donatello. Maybe it's because he wasn't paying attention in science class. Maybe it's because Donatello is getting so frustrated with his brothers. He's the science nerd. How many decades... First of all, how many decades have they been teenagers? But second of all, how many decades has he spent trying to explain the science stuff to his brothers? And, Leonardo is so focused on being the perfect leader. And Raphael is so distracted at trying to harness his anger, bridle his anger a little bit. Michelangelo is too much of a crazy person, having too much of a fun. He's the cowabunga dude. He's having too much fun to reel it in and actually pay attention. And so when Leonardo doesn't pay enough attention to Donatello, maybe Donatello pieces out. And maybe it's April that holds Leo accountable for that. I think that's very plausible. April holds Leonardo directly responsible for whatever happened to Donatello. And again, we'll get into that. We'll get into why I think Donatello is missing in just a minute. All right, let's jump back into the chalkboard. Next, I think this takes place in the 90s. I don't think that this is a particularly important note. But again, look at some of the scribbles. Look at the hilt of Leonardo's sword. There's like this little backwards S kind of drawing thing, and right next to like a checkered board, he's kind of scribbling on his notes there. That S was ridiculously popular in the 90s. Having grown up in the 90s, having lived through, having gone to school in the 90s, I can tell you that little letter S, that backwards scribble S thing, that was invented in the 90s. It went viral before going viral was a thing. Take this. Think about this for a second. This is the power of how popular and viral things were before the internet, all right? The internet didn't exist. Well, the internet in its popular form didn't exist yet. And that little backwards S emblem, that little symbol thing, somebody somewhere created it as a doodle, and somebody else saw it and said, I want to draw that. And then somebody else saw it. And then it went from school to from this school to that school, from an older brother to a younger brother. Maybe somebody moved from Atlanta to Seattle, and somebody else started drawing it in Seattle, and then now it kind of became a thing in Seattle. Like, it grew. Who nobody knows who created this thing. Trust me, I've looked it up. Nobody knows exactly where this came from, but that is a signature marker of the 1990s. That was a signature marker of going to school in the 1990s. There was a doodle that everybody did, and when I say everybody did it, I'm not just saying I did it and I represent everybody. That was such a cultural phenomenon that didn't mean anything. Everybody was aware of it. Everybody did it. So why include it in the notes? Well, I think that's because this movie is going to take place in the 90s. That was such an iconic mark of the 90s. I think it's going to take place in the 90s. All right, next. Okay, let's look at the notes here. There are at least 3 different types of mutagen here. All right. Let me jump back into the thing. Sorry, guys. I should have had this little more organized for you. All right. So scrolling down underneath honor and loyalty, we have the category of mutagens. It changes the genetic sequence. And they are a main cause of diversity in organisms, right? So types of mutagen, you have deletion, duplication, and translocation. Up until these notes, we've only known about mutagen as a very generic thing. Where's my canister of mutagen? We've only known of mutagen as like a very generic container. We know that TCRI created this kind of mutagen to help grow and mutate organisms a little bit, specifically in plants, to help grow super plants so that we can have more food and more abundance and take food costs and make them lower and, end the war on hunger and all that stuff, right? So that was the goal of TCRI, and then Shredder and Krang and blah, 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 whoever else you want to blame or talk about, maybe Baxter Stockman, they weaponized it. And they used it on themselves. They used it on each other. They created Rocksteady Bebop. The Turtles were created. Hamato Yoshi got turned into, depending on which origin story you believe, Hamato Yoshi got turned into a rat, so on and so forth, right? But now, based on these notes, it looks like we're going to get at least three different types of mutagens. And with 3 different types of mutagens, you guys, this is very reminiscent of, do you remember in the comics, in the Superman comics, when they started introducing new different types of kryptonite? Yeah, there's always been green kryptonite. But guess what? There's also red kryptonite. There's black kryptonite. There's blue kryptonite. There's white kryptonite. I believe there was a silver kryptonite at one time. And each kryptonite gave Superman a different set of abilities. So I think they're probably going to toy around with this idea of different types of mutagens, whether they're going to be different color. I think it would be cool if they were all different colors, because the green mutagen historically has been the mutagen that like transforms people into a thing. But I think based on these notes, we're also going to get deletion, duplication, translocation, which I think I think that's a really interesting characteristic. And then underneath, I don't know if you can see, it says unintended mutations. We'll talk about that in just a second. All right, let's jump back into the notes here. Baxter Stockman, an ally? Now, I put this as a question. Is Baxter Stockman going to be an ally? Now, again, let's jump into the notes here. On the left-hand side, we have a little illustration. We have a little drawing of what looks to be a human man who is frustrated, and he's screaming, "Pay attention!" with 2 exclamation marks. And you can see the... oh, sorry. I thought I had the... There we go. Okay, sorry about that. All right, here we go. So you have what looks to be a human man screaming, "Pay attention!" He has these fuming anger marks coming out of his head with a few flies buzzing around him. And now right underneath his mouth, there's a little graph. And we don't know what the graph is. It kind of goes up and then down and up and then down, then up. So, I mean, if that were my own speculation, I would think that that's more of like his anger kind of going up and then down and then up and then down and then up again. But also we have these flies buzzing about. Now, by itself, this doesn't necessarily mean Baxter Stockman. I understand that. I realize that. Okay. But you have... clearly, this is Leonardo being frustrated at the teacher, and so he's drawing... Like, how many of us have done this in school? We all have that one teacher that we're like, "Oh, you're dumb," and so you draw a negative photograph of them, or like a negative depiction in your notes, in the margins of your notes, just like you did here, of the teacher, this case being the science teacher, And flies in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe, flies, scientist, human. I mean, come on, that's Baxter Stockman. And if Baxter Stockman is the teacher in this scenario of Leonardo, does that mean that Baxter Stockman is now an ally? I mean, where else is Leonardo going to get his information from? Well, Donatello. But okay. I think we've come to that part in the notes here. I think Donatello has gone missing. Now, I've been saying this a few times as I've been listing out all of these, breaking down the notes here. But I do think that Donatello has gone missing. Again, let's jump into Seth Rogen's notes here. All right. Right at the bottom left-hand corner, you have Mikey, who's in drama club. You have Raph, who's in math class right now. And then you have Donnie with 3 question marks. Where's Donatello? I mean, this could be read as, oh, Mikey is the dramatic one. Raphael doesn't know math. But I think these are all the classes. Like, again, taking into consideration, like, they're all in class right now and they're all learning a different subject. Leonardo is in Leonardo is in science class right now. I think Michelangelo is in drama club or drama class right now. And I think Raphael is in math class right now. But where's Donatello? We don't know. So that's why I say, like, again, based on this little thing right there, I think Donatello has gone missing. And I think that right there, that's what, why is this so blurry? Sorry, you guys. Camera always gets blurry. I think that is going to be the impetus for everything else. Donatello's gone missing. Where did he go? Why is April mad and upset? Why is it now incumbent upon Leonardo to take science classes? Who is he going to take science classes from? Baxter Stockman? But we've always known that Baxter Stockman, yeah, he's a villain, but he's also not entirely committed to Shredder's agenda, right? He's never always been fully committed to Shredder's agenda. So I think there's more going on with Baxter Stockman than we had originally thought. All right, 2 more points, you guys. 2 more points about breaking down these notes. Yeah, I think it stands to reason there's going to be a new villain. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like an evil Russian. If you look at the 3 different types of mutation, you have deletion, duplication, translocation. Underneath translocation, it says unintended mutations, ? So yeah, I think this is clearly showing us that there are going to be some unintended mutations here. Probably based on all of the experiments and the evil test mutations had by the bad guys. I think we're going to have an entirely new villain, or a villain that we haven't seen yet before in any of the movies, in any of the cartoons. Maybe in one of the cartoons, but hasn't come to prominence yet. I, for one, would love to see the Rat King as, like, if they did, I would love to see the Rat King in a live action movie first and foremost. But, one character that we've just never seen in any of the movies or animated shows or anything is Old Hob. Where's Old Hob? What's he up to? I personally would like to see Old Hob. There's no cat references here. If you don't know who Old Hob is, just go back and read some of the comics. He's a very prominent villain. He's like a street level villain. He's not like a Shredder or Krang level villain. He's a street level. He's a street thug. He's the gang. He's the local gang organizer. He's half man, half cat. He's missing an eye. He wears an eye patch. He's a really cool character. There's no feline references on here, at least from what I can see. So is Old Hob going to be in it? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe. We'll have to wait and find out. All right. So the last thing that kind of ties all of this together. Ties it all together. I think that having a working knowledge of the listed elements from the notes above, having a working knowledge of the listed elements will be key to both defeating the villain and finding Donatello. Now, Donatello's disappearance is not without precedence. There is a fairly recent, and by fairly recent I mean maybe in like the last 5 years, something like that. There's a storyline in the comics where Rocksteady and Bebop are fighting Donatello in some computer lab or something like that. Donatello's like, hey guys, we've been here before. You can't defeat me. Yada, 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 right? So Donatello, not to say that Donatello was cocky, but he was very confident that he was going to defeat once again or get away from Rocksteady and Bebop. Well, guess what? He didn't. Rocksteady and Bebop beat Donatello to death. And it was a huge, momentous issue in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was very controversial. Some people are like, no, you can't kill one of the turtles. And of course, like, it's science light, so they found a way to bring him back and everything was fine. But for the time being, they killed Donatello. And it was a big deal. So, and again, like, let's jump back into the notes here, shall we? Donatello's gone missing. We have all of these. We have a deletion mutagen. We have a duplication mutagen, which might be key. Duplication. When things are duplicated, like your elbows or my swords. Okay, well, I mean, there you go. Deletion, when a characteristic is deleted, like fingers. We all know that the turtles have 3 fingers. And then you have another type of mutagen, which is translocation, the misplacing of characteristics. Question mark, question mark, question mark. We're not entirely sure what that means, but hey, maybe things go missing from time to time, right? But you have duplication as a type of mutagen. It's very possible. Where did I go? Sorry, guys. It's very possible that they might begin the movie with the death of Donatello. It's very possible. And maybe that is why April O'Neil is upset with Leonardo. He should have prevented this. Leonardo should have prevented the death of Donatello, and he didn't. And now they have to deal with the fallout. And now Leonardo has to go on this journey as to what does it mean to be a brother? What does it mean to be a leader? Who am I? What is my purpose? How do we get Donatello back? How do we keep this team together, right? I think that is going to be a central theme of this movie. Where's Donatello? What happened to him? Where did he go? Why is April upset with Leonardo? How does Leonardo become a better leader? How does all this science come into play? Who's the new mutated villain? There's so much here to look at, to unpack. But guys, I want to hear from you. What are your main thoughts about this? Was there something on Seth Rogen's list of like his illustration, his drawing? Was there something there that I missed? Was there something there that I just didn't cover? Am I leaving something out? Did I overlook something? Let me know down in the comment section below. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles would want you to do. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.